Hello students, welcome to Accounting 1329, Payroll and Business Tax Accounting. My name is Dr. Mercado and I am going to be your instructor for this course. The textbook that we are going to be using is Payroll Accounting 2021. This is the 31st edition. Now, every week you are going to be having some lectures posted on Blackboard. These lectures are intended to help guide you in completing your weekly assignments. Now, this lecture for Chapter 1 is going to be a little bit different than the rest of the lectures because Chapter 1 is more of an overview of the different payroll laws. And a lot of just general information, terminology based. There is really no problem solving. So I'm just going to quickly highlight some of the key areas. You are still responsible to read the entire chapter. This is not a supplement of the reading. You still have to read. It's just extra information that I'm providing to you. I'm also going to use this time to kind of like explain my expectations as well as how are we going to be using these lectures that I'm going to be providing. Now, like I said, every week you're going to be having, for the most part every week, you're going to be having a quiz and a homework. Okay, this textbook, I love it because it's short, but it covers a lot of information. It provides a lot of guidance, a lot of examples. It's an awesome book. We're only covering 6 chapters in the semester. So that gives us about 2 weeks per chapter to cover the content. So once we get to the actual meat of the course, which is where we're going to be calculating payroll, taxes, doing journal entries, doing tax forms, all of that stuff, which is time consuming. I'm going to be able to explain that information in my lectures. Chapter 1, like I stated, it's just terminology and law based. So it's just more of reading material. Okay, but every week I am going to select a couple of problems to go over with you. I'm not going to go over every single problem that I assign for homework. I'm going to let you tackle those problems, and if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. Okay, it is important that you read. It is important that you review the information provided in your textbook and you utilize the examples as guidance. Okay, if after you read, you review the information, you review the different examples provided, you have any questions, always feel free to contact me. Just make sure that you include the problem number that you're working on. If you can include the screenshot of the problem number the problem that you're working on, because every student will have a different problem. My homework problems are algorithmic based, so every student has a different problem. If you can provide me with the problem and you can provide me with your attempted solution. I want to see what you're doing so I can provide you with guidance. I'm not just going to give you the answer. I'm going to guide you and direct you to the right direction. That way you can work out your problem. Okay. Now, I've had in the past a lot of students that want to skip the homework component of the course. They're like, well, miss, the homework, well, we didn't have time to do it, whatever the reason might be. Or they just say, well, the homework is only worth 20%. I can live without having to do my homework. Okay, that is not a good idea. Okay, why not? Well, because all of the problems in your test are coming directly from your homework. Your homework is intended to give you the hands-on practice to be able to master the different content areas in your examinations. Okay, it is recommended, it is advisable, it is, I would say, required that you complete your weekly homeworks. Okay, those are going to be fundamental in your review for your exams. Okay, you do get 2 attempts for your homework, you do get 2 attempts for your quizzes, and the highest grade is retained. Now, if you do not complete your homework, you will not have anything to study. Okay, if you complete your homework, once the week closes, you'll have access to the solutions for your homework problems along with feedback and calculations, so you can utilize that information to study. Okay. If you did not attempt the homework, you're not going to have that feedback and those answers to help guide you and prepare you for your test. So that is why I tell my students it is very important that you complete and attempt all of your homework problems. Okay, the quiz is more multiple choice, fill in the blank kind of a thing. That one you can guess. Okay, but in the actual application of the problems for you're going to be having for homework, you actually have to know how to calculate different components. There's different formulas to include. It's just more labor intensive calculations that need to get done, and students need to be able to practice. Okay, accounting is not learned by listening. Accounting is learned by doing. You have to do your homework, practice, apply what was learned to actual world case scenario problems, practice, 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 and then you can master the different areas that we're covering. Okay, so that is basically it. Just make sure that you read each of the chapters. There's PowerPoints provided. I provide lecture videos. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. Okay, I am here to assist you. Not because this is an online class means that you are alone. I encourage all of my students to, create study groups. Reach out to your friends in the class or to, just other students and say, hey, let's create a study group, and you all can help each other out in the process. I am not against that. I am against cheating. Okay, if I identify that you are cheating, you will be reported. So make sure that you actually learn. This is very useful information. Not only if you're going to be working in human resources, but at a personal level as well. You're going to be learning how to calculate payroll, the different laws that affect you as an employee. It's just wonderful information. Okay, so let's get started. Like I said, I'm just going to provide you with a short overview. There is a lot of information provided in chapter 1. Okay, now in chapter 1, you are introduced to a whole lot of payroll laws. Okay, so the textbook covers the Fair Labor Standards Act, the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, income tax withholding laws, unemployment tax acts, fair employment laws, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the Americans with Disability Act, the Federal Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993, Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act of 1994, Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, the Affordable Care Act of 2010, workers' compensation laws, state disability benefit laws, and a variety of other laws affecting the need for payroll and personnel records. Woo, that is a lot of information. Okay, now it is a lot of laws and regulations that are being covered in chapter 1. I do not expect you to memorize them. Okay, this is not a memorization class. Okay, there's no use of you memorizing tons of information. What I do want you to know is, you read over these laws, you become familiar with them, you're able to identify, what each of them covers. Okay, your quizzes, your homeworks, your tests, they're open book. If you know where to locate the information, that's all you need. Okay, a lot of instructors are against this, theory of open book kind of a thing. Okay, my justification is I've worked out in the field, and I don't know everything. I don't have the brain capacity to memorize tons of books and information. And there's no need to. Why? Because when you're out there in the workforce, your boss tells you something. The first thing I would do is I had no idea what he was telling me. I would write everything down. I would go to my computer. I would Google it. Okay? And I would do a lot of research on it. Become familiar with it. Why? Because I'm needing it today. Okay? I had never done it before, but you know what? Now I'm going to do something with this information, and I need to know what it is or how to use it or how to apply it. And Google is available to you. Okay? Your boss is not going to say, well, you cannot use your books, you cannot use Google, you cannot use, no. He just wants it done. So if you're able to retrieve this information, and understand what it means, that's all I need. Okay? So there's a variety of payroll laws that are going to be covered here. It's just a matter of you knowing what they are, being able to identify what they cover. And this is not only important like for my class, it's important for when, you're an employee, you're working and then something happens. Like for example, when I was working at a bank prior to this, I had an employee, one of my employees that was under my management. He used to be a Navy SEAL. Okay. He was called back to go serve. And I was not aware of the Uniform Service Employment and Reemployment Right Act. I was not aware. But he comes up to me. He tells me, "Well, I have to leave. I'll be back maybe in about a year." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Can you hold on to my job?" And I'm like, "Well, let me research it. So I went back and I started researching, and voila, I found the Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act of 1994. Okay. And we had to give him, the permission to go to be deployed. And then when he came back, we reinstated him. Maybe not in the same position, but something similar to what he had before. Okay, it's important to know your rights. That way, you're treated with respect, and you're provided all of the benefits that apply to you. Okay, uh, the same thing. When I was younger, maybe like 12 years ago, I adopted some children. I adopted two boys. Okay, I asked my boss for permission to go handle the adoption process. Out of the area, and he was very hesitant to give me that permission. Okay, and then I wanted specific days off because it was going to be a long process, and he was wanting me to be there every end of month because I was responsible to close the books. Okay, I went back and I did a lot of research under FMLA, and I took it up to his attention. I said, "You know what? You can't make me come end of month. You can't make me do this. I'm covered by FMLA." Okay, why? Because it's a life-changing situation. I'm adopting two children, right? So things like that help you as an employee protect your rights. Okay, so it's just something very important. Like I said, you don't have to memorize them. There's a lot of discrimination because of your gender, because of your age. It's just a wealth of great information being provided to you here. Okay. The textbook for Chapter 1 also covers the Human Resources Department procedure in the hiring process. Now, every institution or organization has different procedures in place. Okay, the textbook provides you with an outline of an overview of what the process generally is. Usually, what happens is we receive a request for a new employee. There's a vacancy for a position, or maybe we're expanding and we need additional help. So we receive the request for a new employee. We examine the applications received. We post out the job offer or the job in the newspaper and on the internet, and we say, we're hiring cashiers. Okay. We open a window. We're going to say, okay, we're going to receive applications for the next 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, you receive all of these applications. Once the window closes, you start examining the applicants and see, who's a better fit for the job, depending on what the job requirements state. Once you've made your selection, okay, these are the candidates that I think would fit good for the position. You interview the applicants. Okay. You administer some tests. Some organizations administer personality test assessments. Actual application of, for example, in this case, if they're cashiers, their cash handling ability. It just depends on the organization. They have internal procedures for those tests. Okay. After the tests are administered, the references are checked to make sure that they validate to what the employee stated on their resume. Then you select and notify the successful applicant. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hire you. This is my job offer. Are you available? Or are you still interested in the job? And then if the applicant says, yes, I'm ready to get started. Okay, you agree that they're going to come into work on a specific date. You need to make sure that you send all of the information to the payroll department on the applicant that you have selected for the job. And that way they can prepare a personal file for that employee. Okay, so basically figure 1.4 provides the procedure that the Human Resource Department will follow in the hiring process. Okay. When an applicant is interested in a job, usually the employer has an application for employment. This application provides a general it provides questions that are required to be able to assess the work history, the work experience, the qualifications, the training of that particular candidate. That way we, the employer, can make the best decision of who we are going to hire. Okay, so the application, all applications need to be the same for all applicants. And then they're available. The applicant fills it out, they return it, and then the Human Resources Department evaluates the information presented, and then they make the determination of who's going to be called in for the interview. Okay, so the application form is a personnel record which gives the applicant an opportunity to provide complete information about themselves, that way they can be evaluated, and then hopefully they can be called in for an interview. What we have here is a hiring notice. This is a form that is sent to the payroll department so that the new employees are properly added to the payroll. You don't send a hiring notice, then the HR department is not going to know that you hired a new employee, and they're not going to get paid. So it's very important that the form is sent to the payroll department. That way the payroll department can create a file for that employee, as well as create or add the employee to the payroll system. Okay. Another form, and in the human resources we have a lot of forms. Everything is very well documented. Everything goes into the employee's record or file. That way, if something happens, there's a lot of lawsuits that happen that deal with human resources, either because you fired someone or you demoted them or whatever the case might be. So it's very important to always have all of these forms and all of the information available. So what we have here is a change of status form. It's basically a document that notifies the proper departments of a change in the employee's rate of remuneration. Okay, so whether an employee gets a promotion, like in the case here we have an employee that went from being a payroll specialist making $48,000 to being an accounting analyst making $51,500. So this is a promotion. Okay, they're making more money. So this information is provided to the payroll department. That way they can process the correct pay for this employee. Okay. And if there's any change, there was a transfer, a demotion, a merit increase, whatever the case might be, it is notated on the change of status. That way it can be documented as to the date that the change occurred and the reason for the change. Okay. Here we have on figure 1.8 the procedures in a payroll accounting system. These are basically procedures and methods related to the disbursement of pay to employees. Okay, so the first thing we have to do when we're paying our employees is record the hours worked or the units produced. And it depends and it varies by organization. How do they keep track of the hours worked? Do they have a time card system? Do they punch in on a computer? Do they use their fingerprint? Every organization has its own method. Regardless, there needs to be a method to record the actual hours worked or the units of production. Okay. Once that is obtained, then we are able to compute the gross pay, the deductions, and the net pay. Okay. Once the calculations have been performed, then we complete the payroll register. Okay. And then that way we can maintain our payroll deduction records. We can update our employees' earning records. We can make payments to employees. We can record payroll in the accounting books, and we can prepare the various payroll reports. Okay, so all of these items are done once the payroll register is complete. Okay. Now, what is a payroll register? Okay, a payroll register is basically a multi-column form that is used to assemble and summarize the data needed at the end of each payroll period. It basically lists all of the organization's employees who earn remuneration, the amount of remuneration, and the deductions and the net amount paid. Okay, so it's basically a summary of everything that has been paid. All of the employees for the organization are listed, their hours worked, their rate, their deductions, and then finally their net pay. Okay, the payroll register is a very useful tool, not only to simplify and be able to identify how much did we as an organization pay for this pay period, but it also provides you an overview of the entire organization, including all of its employees. Okay, so the payroll register is a multi-column form used to assemble and summarize the data needed at the end of each payroll period. Okay, so it lists all of the employees who earn pay, the amount of the remuneration, the deductions, and the net amount paid. Okay, and then we can tell here from the payroll register, it gives you for the week ending. Okay, and then it lists you the 5 employees, their hours worked, their regular earnings, their overtime earnings. You have to split those out into 2 sections. Then you have your deductions and your net pay. What we have here is the employee's earnings record after you complete your payroll register. Now, the payroll register includes all of the information for all of your employees. Meanwhile, the employee's earnings record is a record for each employee that is used to provide complete information about the accumulated earnings of each employee. Okay, so the employee's earnings record, there is one earnings record per employee. So every employee has to have its own employee earnings record. The employee's earnings record provides very useful information needed to prepare periodic reports required by the withholding tax laws, the FICA tax law, and the state unemployment or disability laws. The employers also use the employer's earnings record in preparing Form W-2 wage and tax statements at the end of the year. This form shows the amount of wages paid each worker in the course of the trade or business of the employer. So the employee's earnings record, very important document that needs to be completed because it basically it summarizes all of the activity related to payroll for that specific period. Okay, and I believe this is the last slide that I have here with information. Okay, please, I encourage you this week. Both your quiz and your homework are very simple because there is no actual calculations. The calculations are going to start in chapters 2 and they're going to run through chapter 6. Make sure by now all students should have created their account in Cengage. That way you can begin working on your assignments. This is week number 1. So during this week, you will have access to Cengage even if you don't have money. Remember, you do get a free trial period. So make sure that you follow the different instructions on the orientation videos. That way you can create your Cengage account and begin working on your assignments. Please, I cannot stress it enough. Please read each of the designated chapters. And then complete all of your weekly assignments. The more assignments you complete, the better you do, the more points that you earn. Okay, if you didn't do very well on the first try, use the second try. I always will keep the highest grade earned. Okay, this is one of my favorite courses of all time. It's just payroll is so much fun, and we're actually able to apply this. You know, if you're working, I had a student maybe 2 years ago after she took this course. You know, she went back and she evaluated her paycheck stub, and she's like, Miss, I found errors, you know, and I went and I told the human resources department, you know, and they were pretty impressed, you know. So it's not only about you know what, well, I'm not going to do payroll in the future. It's just that it's an elective and it's required. Knowing and having a general understanding of payroll and business tax accounting is very instrumental in case you're interested in opening up your own business or working for another, you know, for someone else, making sure that your pay is being calculated correctly. Okay. So, like I said, chapter 1 is just an overview of just the general information in the chapter. Starting next week, when we start week number 2, we are going to be doing a lot of problem solving. Make sure that you have a calculator. That's about it for this week's lecture. I cannot stress it enough. If you have questions, do not fall behind. Ask, you know, don't be afraid of asking for assistance, asking for guidance. Okay. So that is it. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe. And until next time, thank you.